Alright guys, today we are going to be coloring the tomato, so the tomato horned worm. If you're a gardener, this is a guy you don't like to find in your tomatoes, but I have to admit, I think he's kind of cool looking. I mean, he camouflages and he is just doing what nature made him to do. So today we're going to color him. We're going to use all these different materials here that you see. You'll see several different medias of ink and different types of colors and color pencils, so you just have to decide what you want to color your picture from. So now we are going to talk about things that we need to think about before we start coloring, and one of those things is, where is your light source? So for things to look real or to look 3D, they have to have highlights and shadows. And so one thing you need to think about is, where is your light source coming from? So one way to kind of think about that in your mind is, imagine that you are outside, the sun is shining, and if the sun is hitting you on your left side, then your left side is going to be highlighted, but there's going to be a shadow that's going to be cast on your right side. Okay, so when you look at your picture, you need to decide where your light source is coming from. Okay, I tend to put my light source on the right side here, and then the left side will be shaded. I think that's because I am right-handed, so it's just easier for me to do that. And so you're going to think, okay, left side shaded, right side highlighted. The first thing we want to do though is we want to put a base color. So you always want to put a base color down on everything first. So you're going to want to actually lay your colors out according to a value scale, okay? So from light to dark, and that way it's easier for you to go through and add your highlights to shadows. And so you want to start with a lighter color first, and you want to work your way to a darker color. So just come through here and arrange those according to what you think is best. Now if you want to put this on an extra sheet of paper and just have it to the side, that's a recommendation, because sometimes the color that's actually showing on the wood part of the pencil is not the same as the pigment that is inside the color pencil. So that's something you need to think about, okay? And just have that in mind before you start. And we are going to start with our base coat. So that's going to be our lightest color, so like this one, okay? And you are going to start, I usually start on the left side, as you see, because I am right-handed. So if you're left-handed, you're going to want to start on the right side, because that way you are not smearing your color across your paper. I'm also doing a contour line, as you see here. So I am contouring with my pencil, so that you are able to kind of show that, hey, this is rounded. You want to use a consistent pressure. So notice I'm coloring lightly, but it's the same pressure the whole time. I'm actually kind of doing this circular motion as well, so that way I don't have lines and streaks, okay? So I usually tell my students, of course not my kindergartners, but the thing I say is, hey, don't color like a kindergartner. Because we want all of it to be smooth and all of it to be consistent. So, kindergartners like to sit there and scribble, scrabble, and so you have them going in all different directions, and the pressures are different and stuff, and that's okay for a kindergartner. But as you're older and you're a high school student, you really, at that point, unless you're doing a piece that requires it or that's your inspiration, if you're trying to make it be a realistic piece or a smooth color piece, you need to try to be consistent in your marks and your pressure. So we're going to go through here, and I'm going to go ahead and color the whole base color. And so while I'm doing that, I'm going to speed it up a little bit and then give you some facts about the tomato worm. Okay guys, so I'm just going to run through some cool facts, interesting facts about the tomato worm. So I'm not an official scientist, so this is just research that I found from different locations and books and online, and just a short little synopsis of what the tomato hornworm is. Of course, it has a scientific name, but I cannot pronunciate that, so I'm not going to even attempt it. But its common name is the tomato hornworm. So this caterpillar, technically, even though we call it a worm, is actually going to become the five-spotted hawk moth. Okay, so the five-spotted hawk moth uses tomato plants as a host plant to lay its eggs. It gives the caterpillar the common name that it's known for. They are a gardener's constant worry because these caterpillars can easily take out a whole tomato plant in one day. So if the hawk moth sits there and lays its eggs underneath the leaf, and it's really hard for the gardener to find, and so then you come out the next day and you have got a plant full of these caterpillars. Okay. Um, so here at our homestead, the Wildwood Wonder Homestead, we don't use pesticides on our plants. So what we have to do is every morning and every afternoon we go through the plants and we search under the leaves and over the leaves, and we can sit there and search all morning, go through all of our plants, and usually it's me and the kids or my husband. We're going through those, and we think we've gotten them all, and we'll put them in a bucket, and we still end up missing some. They are the best camouflagers ever. Oh my goodness, they turn upside down on the stem, and so they look just like a leaf if you're not paying attention. So you really have to carefully go through there, and we still end up missing some somehow. So we'll go back out that afternoon, and you can see evidence of where a new one has eaten. So what we usually do is, if it's a leaf that's been eaten on, and we pick it off so that we know that we got the worm off of that one. And so if we come back and we see new leaves that have been eaten on, then we know, oh, we missed a worm. You can also find evidence, which is going to sound really gross, but you can tell where a worm's been by looking for their poop. They've got the weirdest poop. It is like these little pebbles that are in like these little saucer shapes. And so you can look on the plant, and if you see this poop, you know you have a tomato worm. And so we just go through there and we look for it, and we look even better for it. So what we end up doing is we do put them inside of a coffee can, and they end up going to our chickens. Our chickens love a good tomato worm snack. And so therefore, because it helps our garden out, we have naturally taken this pest out of the garden, so it's not eating our tomato plants and our tomatoes, and we are able to give them to our chickens. And so it just kind of all works in the cycle of permaculture type style, where we're taking what we have and we're feeding our chickens, and so we are getting eggs from them. And so it's just a big cycle. They take care of our pests, we end up with tomatoes, we end up giving them to them, they make our eggs, we eat their eggs, and then they also get our tomato scraps after we're done, especially after canning the tomatoes. Then I end up with a whole bowl full of just delicious skins and whatever's left over, and they like to eat that. So, and then whatever the kids don't want. All right, so I am finishing up all the details with this lighter color, and trying to get done with my last little leg. All right, so get all the little details, go back in. Don't be scared to touch. I call that like the white halo. So students like to tend to put a white halo around things. Try not to do that. Don't be scared to go right along the edge, okay? Okay, now you want to start using your note card, okay? And so you have your base coat down, and so when you go back to add your darker color, it's going to smear everywhere, and you'll have a mess, okay? Okay, so now we're going to go in and we're going to start adding darker and lighter values. So this is going to be our lighter values you just put in there. We're going to kind of keep that to keep our highlights, and go down, and then we're going to start to add our darker values, and you're going to have to get a darker color to start adding those in. Okay, so keep your highlight, and we're just going to add darker, and remember your value scale. Okay, so just add your dark in there, and go up as high as you feel comfortable with. And you can see I'm kind of blending it into the lighter colors and just creating like a smooth consistency. And see how I'm going to get darker around the edges and doing that. So I've actually given you like a cue on where to go. So all these little spots here are stippling and cross hatching and contour lines, and they kind of tell you where your shadows are. Okay, so I've kind of already told you where your light source is, and so all you have to do is kind of follow them. So if you see a darker area, then you know that that is where your shadow is, and so that's where you need to color darker. All right, guys, so here is the final uh, coloring page. So I figured you didn't want to sit there and watch me color every leaf in the background. So I went ahead and did that. And you can see where I have the green kind of similar to the worm, of course, because he camouflages in it. So it makes sense that they would be very similar in color. And then I went ahead and add the background. Now notice the value. So it starts out dark and goes to light, because remember our light source was over here on the right. And that's what makes things look real, guys, is when you really go in there and you push those dark areas. So like right here on the worm, the tomato, and don't be scared to go in with like even darker color, because I actually used a purple inside of here and under here on the tomato. Same thing in the leaves. You know, you might want to go in with a super dark green. If you don't have a super dark green, then go in there with a blue, okay? Because they're in the same cool color family and they will blend well together. And there you go. So I thought he turned out pretty good. So go in, do those details. Take your time. It's okay. It's supposed to be a fun process. Don't stress out. Good artwork takes a little while. You're not going to be done just like that. So, there you go. So if you want to follow along with me, you can go to the website wildwoodwonder.com and you can pick up the coloring book. So this is the coloring book that of the artwork from the critters and the adventures and stuff that we have here on the Wildwood Wonder homestead. And so this is just a collection of drawings of all the different animals and plants that I've encountered here. And so the tomato worm is in there. It's on a spiral bound, so it's easy to open up and fold. It has a perforated edge, so you can easily tear it out if you want to. And then there's tons of animals like the brown bat. So I'm going to start going through all these. And that is something you would like to do with me, especially the complicated ones, so that you know what goes where. I'm going to teach you how to do that and how to add your value and your colors. So you can go ahead and pick that up, and we are ordering, or we're shipping those out. And I hope you have fun coloring with me.